You are listening to the Hostage to the Devil podcast. Some listeners may find this content disturbing.
All right, Cheryl. So, thank you for agreeing to come on the show. We've talked a lot over the last few years about your particular case. So, one of the biggest requests that I get from audiences is, do you ever speak to anybody who has had a rite of exorcism performed on them and has been through the ritual themselves? It's one of the most common questions that I get asked a lot, especially with the film and the podcast. And I believe that you have had a few minor exorcisms with the issues that you have had, past and present. And are you, can you take us back to the origins of your issues, and as specific as you can, talk us through the timeline of events?
Sure. I guess as far as the need for an exorcism or my realization that I needed one, it began here when we moved into a haunted house, and we had a few issues and things, and maybe had a lot of paranormal experiences in the past, but I didn't really think too seriously of it. But I was one day a Christmas, my son came over to stay, and I had to sleep downstairs, and then I was actually physically raped by a demon down there, and it was horrifying. I was traumatized really bad. So, and I knew then I had to go to my priest that I had a real problem, a real serious problem, and that was the first thing that sent me off to the church. Of course, I was terrified to tell my priest this. I thought he's gonna think I'm absolutely crazy or something, and
Yeah.
and before that, we'd have other things happen, like we'd have I don't know, just weird sounds and things like that, the normal haunted house kind of things, and holy metals that would appear and disappear in odd places, things like that, but nothing too terrifying until that happened. So I went to my priest, and he said he was pretty good about it. I was so scared to tell him, I think, what is he going to think of me, But he was pretty understanding, and he said, he basically told me the protocol was that I had to get a psych exam, and I had to have hard evidence for the church to help me at all. So I said, I didn't even know what hard evidence. How am I going to, I didn't know what to do. How do I gather that? So he suggested that I get a tape recorder, just like a handheld tape recorder, and set it out at night. So I did that, and I couldn't believe the terrifying voices we were picking up. I mean, just, it'll curl your hair. I think I sent you some of that stuff.
Yeah.
Just, monstrous kind of sounds, and I didn't even know if I was going to pick anything up at all, so I thought, wow, we got a real bad infestation problem. And then I set up an appointment to go to the psychiatrist like they wanted. So I did that, and it was about a 4-hour appointment with about 800 questions, and he was very thorough. And by the time I was done, he declared that I was sane, and that he wrote the church, he actually wrote my priest a letter saying that they need to help me right away.
Yeah.
This is a real deal, and she's completely sane. So that started me on the help with my help with the church. And their first actions were to come in there and bless the house, or to cleanse the house. They did that about over the 7-year period, I'd say about 5 or 6 times with thorough blessing. The first blessing they came in, though, they actually did a healing of me. Oh, no, there was a second blessing. The first blessing, they did a normal blessing all throughout the house and such. The second blessing, they came through. They decided that I also needed to be healed, that it might be attached to me. So they had a room full of priests, and they had the psychiatrist from the church that was working with them at the time. And they did a long interview of me of all the trauma that I've been through and everything that's happened in my life and such, because I did come from a kind of a traumatic background, which is probably why I've had more of the demons have attacked me more.
Yeah.
And then they did a healing on me. They had all kinds of old relics. I can't even know which ones they had, but they did the Latin prayers on me, the healing, and I had a really physical reactions. I got like violently sick, and then and they kind of left me like that, like okay, the healings are pretty spaced far apart, and so I was sick for about 3 weeks from that healing, where I wish I would have kind of like I kept in contact with more. Are you okay? Maybe I needed several of them right immediately after that, but in that meantime, when I was so sick and I felt so down too, I just felt really low, at that point. Then I had this amazing experience. I've had a lot of good mystical experiences through this, where Christ came to me and he told me to do gospel graphic designs of the gospels every day. And I hadn't done graphic design in so long, even though I have several degrees in art, and so I just kind of did it, and and I've been doing that for like 5 years now. I must have like 7,000 graphic designs. I've gotten a lot better since I first started, and that's been a good part of my life. It's like I could turn this awful thing that's happened to me into something positive and try to make a difference. It's really helped me learn a lot more about the scriptures too.
I mean, this is fascinating. When you talk about like graphic design of the Gospels, you mean you like drawing symbols or drawing
Oh yeah, I
characters?
got a bunch of them on my Facebook page. I do I use Adobe Photoshop and I use my own photography, and I take the content of the daily gospels and I try to interpret them in an illustrative way, and then just put them out there. Just I put them out on like 4 different social media sites. So and then I recently had some odd things happen though. My priest told me not to use the AI because I had some really strange things happen where the demonic does infiltrate that AI sometimes. I'll have to show you some of the images. I saved some of them, but I decided I'm just going to push through it. And the church uses AI for some of their documentation, so I just kept at it, and that hasn't been bothering me as much. But after that, I was okay for a while, but then we're getting a lot of strange noises in the house and voices. We'd hear people arguing, and I'm not sure if that was just residual. It's an old house or demonic or what, or if it's a mixture of both. And then I had over the next few years, I had several more attacks that were even more severe. I got up in the middle of the night where I thought I was gonna die one time. I just crawled to the bathroom. I literally thought, man, I was gonna just die right there. It was attacking me, where it just takes over your whole body and you can't move. It's kind of hard to describe the whole experience, but it's terrifying. I could barely move, but the inside of me was just praying really hard just to get through this, and it finally, boom, just gone. That happened several more times. I was physically sexually assaulted. One time I was being sexually assaulted. It's happened a couple times. Like the first time it happened, it woke me up out of a sleep, and I was like, couldn't believe what was happening. Another time it woke me up out of sleep, and as it did, I felt like I was just before that, I felt like I couldn't breathe. I felt like I was just near death. Woke up and I seen this tunnel of light and angels and an image of Mary. I've seen other forms that are saintly like forms too, but my priests are always warning me, well, it could be demonic or whatever, because sometimes it can pose. But in the situations that it came in, like saved me from that terrible rape, or inspired me to do the gospel graphic designs. To me, that seems like that's a good thing. But and then also I was a few years later, I had to go just going through the back and forth and periodic healings. They pull me into the church and various churches around here and do the Latin prayers and the healings and ask me a lot of questions. And at one point, we had an interim bishop because our previous bishop was removed because we had a horrible sex scandals throughout our diocese, just terrible. So they removed that bishop, put an interim bishop in, and he stopped my healings. He told the priest that we can't get involved in anything like that. I couldn't believe that. I was so scared and shocked, what am I going to do? I'm in the middle of this horrifying experience, and the church itself is stopping this.
Because of the scandal in the church at the time, or
Yeah, maybe they didn't want more scandal. They didn't want to get it out that they were doing exorcisms. I don't know. He was just an interim bishop, but I don't know. They didn't want the bad publicity or something. I don't know. I keep very quiet about it. This is the most vocal and open I've been about it all these years.
no, I appreciate you disclosing this. It's obviously very personal to you as well, and
Oh, yeah, yeah, it's hard. I was like, do I do it or why not? Maybe if it helps somebody else, might get
yeah,
it
this is
out.
the whole point of the podcast is, I mean, I reached out to you because I've been following your case for a few years for
Yeah,
the second installment film, and it's a pretty textbook case of demonic oppression,
yeah.
and you're very sort of blasé with how you explain your basically horror story, but in a sense of the sexual assault by this entity or demonic entity, whatever it is.
I've been diagnosed with an extreme form of PTSD. The church psychologist, a new church psychologist. They have a woman now because the other guy went out to California or something. But she told me the same thing, and I feel that way, just kind of numb. All the things I've seen, I can
Yeah.
just talk about it like I'm making toast or something. And
Can you talk me through that first encounter, that not necessarily in detail, but is it a force? Does it engulf you? Does it suppress you thoroughly?
yeah,
I'm trying to get the audience inside your POV and to get them to understand what you were going through during that phase.
yeah, the first sexual assault was forceful so much it woke me out of a dead sleep from behind, like an animal or something, man. It was awful, man. I was like terrified, what is going on? Like I say, I've had paranormal experiences my entire life periodically. And I just got to brush them off or, whatever. But this was a new level that, I knew I had to get help. And the one where I was engulfed, yeah, it happened one time when I was out with my son too. So it's not just associated with a house where I felt like my soul was kind of floating above my body and I was kind of watching what was going on. And this is gross when like all your body fluid just boom, like go right through you. It's kind of disgusting. And then you kind of can't even move. You're like, like out of control, like something else has control over it. You can't move your body and you just like, and inside your soul inside is just praying really hard. Just get me through this. Doesn't just save me. You feel like you're going to die, honestly. It feels like you're near to death, is what it feels like. And then, but eventually the interim bishop, we got our new Bishop Walsh. He's a really good guy from Pennsylvania, but he reinstated the healings, and he seems to be real supportive of all of that. So I'm really happy about that. So they kept the healings up, and I had a physical thing happen to me at work where they thought I had ovarian cancer for the longest time. The doctor thought for sure I had ovarian cancer. So I thought, oh, I'm probably gonna die. So they went into the surgery and they opened me up, and he said he had never seen anything like it. He said my ovaries and everything inside me was like twisted. He says that never happens in somebody your age. You can't explain it. It almost killed me. Luckily, he was able to. Yeah, I had to have a full hysterectomy. And then one of the worst assaults I had was when I came home from the hospital and I could barely move. I just had, severe abdominal. I was actually a full abdominal surgery. They opened me up from top to bottom. And I came home and I was assaulted by the demon when I could barely move, sexually assaulted, and then another assault where I was just overcome. I thought at that point, man, this is probably it. So I like barely had any strength left because I had just went through like major surgery and then attacked me really strong when I came back to the house. And so I've always still survived it. And I keep telling the priests about it. They keep bringing me back to the church and doing more healings. And they actually even developed a healing center and the exorcism team around my case. And so now I have a whole team of people. I've got priests, I've got lay people. They bring quite a few people in the room. I've got a psychiatrist, and
Do you mind me asking
They
what the denomination is?
Catholic, yeah, Roman Catholic.
Roman Catholic.
Yeah, but the last time I was at a healing with them, they showed me the new healing. They got a beautiful new healing room.
Yep.
They made, it's basically built around my case, and then but now it'll help them with other cases too. They'll have a place for that because at one point they had to drive like 3 hours way on the other side of the state for my healings. But now, I think they're trying to keep it secret. But now I think they're more out in the open about it. And Bishop Walsh accepts everything more and is a good guy. So a good bishop.
Yeah, that's a positive outlook. I mean, it's great that the
Yes,
church is taking it seriously and putting things in place.
yes, for sure. Yes, that makes me feel more comfortable too, because it was such a terrifying thing when they just stopped it. I was writing all these exorcists, like the famous guys, like, well, what do I do? Explaining what's going on, and they would just send me back to my diocese, as I was like stuck between a rock and a hard place. They couldn't help me. They'd send me to my diocese. My diocese wouldn't help me, but luckily it's better now. But yeah, let me see. I'm trying to think what else has happened. There's been a lot, and I think my mom passed away this last year, and she was having a lot of scary paranormal things. Interesting enough, she'd wake up in the middle of the night screaming with black shadows like in front of her bed, like black figures. And for about 2 years, they were getting like banging on the door. They live downstate in the Metro Detroit. Hard bangings on the door over and over and over again. And I don't
Yeah.
know if it was connected to my case or what, but it's really quite a weird coincidence that would happen at once and at the same time.
Was there any points in this timeline where you wanted to move house or you couldn't financially or?
Yeah, actually, I came into a little inheritance money and I just bought a little place out in the country actually. So yeah, but it's hard to get my daughter to move out. She's having some oppression problems too, and she doesn't want to leave the house. And I find the more I stay in this house, I don't even want to leave. So I was working all the time before, but I've been retired, so
Yeah.
I think it's some of it is the house just like drawing you in. And but unfortunately, I had a shocker. I bought this place. I'm not moving into it till the winter heat bills go down in here. And our county has had trouble. They had a cyber attack, so nobody's been able to sell houses in the county. But so I buy the house. Then the real estate agent confides in me that the former owner died in a drunk driving accident. It's like, oh, you're
Wow.
kidding me. The wife doesn't want to stay here anymore, and because too many memories, I thought, oh my gosh, I hope not. Yeah, I hope. So I'm definitely going to go in there and have the priest bless that place and
Yeah.
put some holy medals like I did around here. The priest gave me about 30, 40 holy medals. They're all over the house in here, and I
Did
seem to tamper it
in the
down.
church's investigation, did they look at the house much?
Yeah, they were here about God between 5 or 6 times. They were here doing house cleansings. They buried holy medals at all four corners of the house. They did a bunch of prayers. You know, last couple of years they gave me the holy medals, but yeah, they did quite a bit. And that's when I think they decided, well, yeah, maybe it's not the house, maybe it's me. And I'm just wondering if it's a combination sometimes because I do have some trauma. And I know that if you do have a lot of trauma, the demons can kind of attach to your soul wounds.
Yep.
And so
Even as a young girl, did you feel like you were special, or were you spiritually sort of tuned in more than others? Is this from a young age, did you feel like you were different?
yeah, I always felt more spiritually tuned in for sure. Even now, I can my intuition. Those things got stronger. Even like I'll know things that happen before they happen, or even insignificant things. And even this house, I dreamed about it for years before we even moved in it. I dreamed of looking through all the rooms in the house and over and over and over again. And when we bought the house, I couldn't believe it. It's like heavy deja vu because this is the house had been dreaming about for years. And yes, yeah, I have. And then we'd have some paranormal things happen at the childhood home too, a few things. But yeah, I feel well, even since I've gone through this, I feel more aware than ever. Like it's that's always around. The the good and bad part of the spiritual world. It just feels
Yeah.
more of a reality for sure.
Can you bring the audience into the room when the rites of exorcism is happening? And I know you call them minor exorcisms, but the rites of exorcism is happening. Can you talk the audience through what is going on inside you at the time?
Yeah, the one here at home,
Yeah.
I was kind of scared and terrified and embarrassed that a lot of the priests want your kids there, and I didn't really particularly want. Some priests don't, some do, but at the house here, they want them here. So I didn't really. That was kind of awkward. I felt awkward, embarrassed, vulnerable, but hopeful too. Hopeful that maybe something could be done. I didn't expect to get so sick from the first one. I got really ill. That's where I think, they're trying their best. They're just fairly new at it,
Yeah.
these guys at that time. And I think really they should have kept at it one after another, and so I felt like I was kind of put in that state and like kind of left to flounder for a while, but they can't babysit me 24 hours a day either. A lot of this you have to kind of deal with it yourself, and
Yeah. You've moved into a new place. Sounds like a beautiful place. You'll know very soon if it's attached itself to
yeah,
you.
yeah, I haven't moved in there. Yeah, I'm just trying to I have to put some flooring and do a few different things, but
So
yeah, it's hard to leave this place in a way because we love the house, but I'm hoping that helps, but we'll see, because attachments can follow you wherever you go. So
how would you, in your own words, describe demonic oppression?
I'd say it attacks your emotions real heavy, your traumatic memories. It gives you a kind of depression, anxiety. You can see terrifying things, whether they're real or not. Some people think, well, that the demons just play with your mind and that your mind is seeing it. But I've seen a lot of horrifying. One time I came home from work and saw this like body, like with no skin on, just muscles, like sitting in the chair, like staring in the mirror, stuff like that, or you know, quick black shadows and stuff. I mean, I almost don't even blink with stuff like that anymore. I've seen so much of that kind of stuff, but we put up security cameras a few years ago, and I couldn't believe how much stuff we picked up on the security cameras. I didn't do it for the ghosts. I just did it to keep us safe, and I picked up some really crazy things on there, like lots of just your normal orbs, but other kind of odd things like uh, tunnels of light coming down the sky with like orbs shooting out. If you go way back, I have a YouTube channel. Go way back, you can see some of that stuff. There's some really odd, scary things, So it is a house built in 1884. It's an old Victorian. But so I think it's probably a combination of residual spirits and my own trauma that's tracked the demonic. And I wonder if sometimes if some of the residual spirits that are coming from the lower forms of purgatory actually bring demons with them, or
Yeah.
in the company. I don't know. I don't really understand it all, but that's
Do you
fine.
mind talking much about your previous trauma in your family? Is it a family generation?
Yeah, sure. I grew up in the suburbs of Milford or Detroit, which is Milford, and my dad had a good job at GM. My mom was a housewife, but they were binge drinking alcoholics. So there was a lot of arguing and fighting and violence, even to where the police would be called, and just a lot of emotional neglect, I think, that I got. They were just all so wrapped up in their own world and their own problems and stuff that I think that was a lot of it. And there was no, we weren't brought up with any religion at all. No, there's no talk of Christ or any religion. And I wound up marrying young. I had enough of all the trauma there. And there's some physical assault. My dad knocked me down one time when I was trying to protect my mom, that sort of stuff. So I just married the first person that asked me at 19. I did love him at the time, but I just wanted to get out of the house, and got married at 19, went off to college in Detroit, started working on my degrees. He was a musician. And they had a few experiences there. We rented a carriage house in Hamtramck. I was like being suffocated one time by something there. And then one time I was actually, believe it or not, in the Detroit Police Reserves when I was in my 20s. And one time I was coming back, I was brave back then. I would never do anything like this now, but I was just coming back from a detail, dropped my gun off at the headquarters, going down to the downtown bus stop. And then here comes a man, a possessed man. It was one of the scariest things I've ever seen still. And he just kept sauntering up. He was just, it's hard to describe. It's like something out of a movie. It was that terrifying. I was the only person at the bus stop. I don't know. I mean, some of these things could have attached to me too. I'm wondering when I reflect back. Finally, the bus guy, I'm trying to get away from the guy. The bus pulls right up. That guy just in time. The bus driver looked terrified too. So I got on the bus and he just tore off. It was terrifying. The poor guy. So, and then just periodically we wound up living in a few haunted houses just by chance. I don't know, just tribal housing and stuff that known to be haunted, and we just discounted.
Just to go
Oh,
back
go
to the
ahead.
man in the bus stop.
Yeah, go ahead.
What made him so frightening?
He was just like making all these weird noises, and it almost looked like stuff was emanating from him, like spiritual stuff. It was the strangest thing, and his face just looked crazy, like monstrous, crazy, and he was like a light-skinned black man. He must have been like being in his 40s, I'd say, but it was just the eyes were just terrifying, and he just was slowly coming at me, and it was one of the strangest things I've ever seen. I've told people about it over the years, and thank God the bus came when it did. I don't know what would have happened then, or I don't know. He was just so out of it, though. I don't even know if he could have really done anything to harm me. I don't know. It was just terrifying, though, and I never forgot about that through the years. And then yeah, then we just had sporadic lived in some few haunted places throughout the years, tribal housing and such. And we lived in an old apartment one time that was an old hospital. Don't ever do that. That's a really bad idea. Somehow I just had the bad luck of running into and living into these haunted places. So yeah, there's a lot of things, but you maybe ask me questions because there's so much that's happened throughout the years.
Just to be sort of direct with you, you seem to be very desensitized to all this trauma and this paranormal
Yeah,
activity. And to an audience, this sounds absolutely horrific. But for you, it's obvious that you have become desensitized, and it's all to do with trauma and how you have just absorbed all this trauma for so long now. And
yeah.
is there like an American like a Native American Indian kind of influence in your family or in your timeline?
Oh yeah, my kids are Native American. They're half Native. Their dad's full in the Grand Traverse Band. So yeah, I've been around Native people for like 34 years. So there's some influence, just from cultural influence and language influence. But and a lot of them are Catholic. Some of them are really reject the Catholic faith, because of things that have happened trauma that's happened to them in the past. And
Yeah.
so but yeah, yeah, they've been a part of my life for a while. So, but they're actually answer my kids' ancestors actually knew Bishop Barraga. I don't know if you're familiar with him. He's a famous bishop that ministered to the Native Americans in Michigan and other places, and so they were strong Catholics on that side, in the Native side, and
Yeah.
their dad's side for a long time.
I am no expert, but it seems like you seem to be the vessel and the attraction to a lot of activity. It's not necessarily a location for you. It's pretty obvious that you are attracting this infestation, this oppression. I'm not saying it's your fault at all, but why why do you think they are choosing you? Is it because you're as we talked before, spiritually more tuned in? Is it? I don't know. I don't know the answer, but do you have any answers at this stage?
I I don't know. I'm not sure. I mean, maybe because I have that. Maybe it attached to me a long time ago when I was living in the house, my mom and dad's house. I'm wondering sometimes. And then just lay dormant for a while, and then yeah, I don't know. I'm not really sure. But things. Even though we lived in a few haunted locations for a while, I never had anything so traumatic like being attacked. Like I was here. And it really got became a lot much worse when I moved here, you know.
So obviously, whenever you move into this new place, I think you will get the answers that you're looking for in a sense of whether this is a location-based entity or is it attached to you as a person. So, I really hope it's gonna leave you alone. I mean, it feels like you have been taunted and oppressed for a long time. So, and it is really positive that the Catholic Church in the diocese that you live in is taking this seriously and are also open to learning about this ministry. I not say it's a new thing, but I'm glad to hear that they are learning and opening doors and forming a very sort of tight team of layman people and psychologists and bishops, etc. So that's a positive, really, moving forward.
Yeah, definitely is very positive, right? At least I have some help, you know, after day to day. It's like even when you have that, you have to day to day deal with it yourself through Christ and your faith and everything. But yeah, definitely the positive step. And then if they ever you need it again in the future for somebody else, they have that all set up. So I
Yeah,
like
it's
to think
also the joy of what we're doing now is you're so courageous in coming forward. Many people, you talked about the vulnerability before about being in the room with all these people, but what you're doing is courageous in the sense that you're coming forward and on record and explaining your demonic oppression experiences, which will hopefully, if people listen to this, people will come forward and approach the diocese or whatever denomination they
right.
yeah. And I do respect you coming forward and telling us your story. Did you find that when the team came to the house and they did the blessings, did you feel like the activity increased or amplified because of that, or did you feel like it went quiet for a while and then sort of came to the surface again?
They first did it, that it would kind of increase the activity. We get a lot of banging on the doors and stuff, and then after a while, it just seemed to just maintain about the same. It seemed when they gave me all the blessed holy medals, that seemed to tamper it down a bit and help a little bit. Although I still get all the crazy stuff on the cameras all the time, it hasn't really harmed anybody for a while.
I even remember the photograph you sent me of your son. It was in the window when the sun goes.
Oh yeah, from a long time ago. That's from the tribal houses, right? A weird face popped up, and then if you look behind it, like behind that first face, there's another scary face, like right behind that. And I've got a couple other ones where there's like white forms, like in front of my youngest son. And we moved in that house, tribal rental. It's a beautiful property. It's in by a trout stream by Torch Lake. I don't. It's like one of the most beautiful lakes in the world, you know, and a pond. So I thought, wow, right, we had the jackpot. We get to rent this place. You know, I remember hearing on the phone when I was calling her, like in the background, we got to get somebody in that house, you know. And I thought, what you talking about? You know, so we moved in there and it was crazy. Yeah, we just we get a lot of poltergeist type of things with like Legos that would one night they were flying through the air so fast. They're so fast that you can hear like a sound, you know, like a whir sound and just whipping through the room. And then like the lazy boy chair would slide across the room, the shoes were flying, and one of the strangest things that ever happened there was the baseball. So that was the same night with the Legos. Actually, I was with Wayne, my ex, who is that's another longer story. He has a involvement with the church too. But anyways, so we decided that we're not sleeping downstairs. We're sleeping upstairs. That's too terrifying. So we're laying in bed, and all of a sudden we hear that bump 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 bump, and we couldn't figure out what it was. So we went to sit at the top of the stairs, and the baseball, my kid's softball, was being thrown up the stairs by itself and bouncing down. It was the craziest thing, you know. So then Wayne decides so then it disappears, and Wayne decides he's gonna find it, and he's looking all over the house. He couldn't find it, and we just stayed. So we're pretty terrified. We didn't know what to do. Like, who do you call? You know. So we went laid in bed upstairs, and it started again. It was like all night long, and I finally passed out. He said it stopped at, or no, my son, he was awake playing video games. He said it finally stopped when the dawn hit, when the first light of day hit. It finally stopped, and that was really terrifying. And that was a house that a man had donated to the tribe because he was upset because it was a very, desirable property. All his kids wanted it, and he was upset with the township giving him a hard time about his septic. So he donated this whole 40-acre tract of land to the Grand Traverse Band. So that's how they got the house. So there's some kind of a, sour grapes kind of stuff going on there before we moved in there, with that going on. And then he donated another 40-acre tract down the road from Torch Lake. These properties are worth, millions and millions of dollars. And down at that other 40-acre tract, which is it's got to be about 3 miles down from the house. They also are having really crazy stuff happen where some of the parents won't let their kids stay there, like black shadow figures running around the cabins and stuff like that. So I don't know if it's tied to that old man or what, but yeah, it's pretty interesting. A lot of people that have lived there have had haunted experiences. In fact, my friend told me not to move in there, that it was haunted. And at the time, I'm just like, well, I need a place really bad. I thought it couldn't be too bad. I didn't realize how bad it was gonna get. So we wound up. When my lease was up, I moved out of that place. I had had enough. That was getting to be too much for sure.
The children, how did they respond to all this activity?
Well, my oldest one, the one that was in the window there, his behavior started to get out of control. So I wasn't sure whether it was associated with his age because he was like preteen and kind of a little stinker anyways, or what. But he just seemed to be more mischievous, cause more trouble and that sort of thing. And so I wondered if that had something to do with it. He tried to terrify my youngest one and say you seen, apparently they did see like a ghost of a Native American woman walking out of the woods one time and scared him. I don't know, I didn't see it myself, but yeah, it was just so I think it affected him the most, probably because he was at that puberty age.
What's next for Cheryl? And is the church still communicating to you with regards to the
Yeah. I had years ago I had I'm also a victim of attempted rape from one of the deacons, like when I was going to church years ago. This is before I had kids even. And that the priest that was running that same church was just removed, and he's got years of terrible sexual abuse. In fact, he raped my ex-husband. That's another story. Yeah, there's another anecdote I get into. But anyways, oh, what was I saying? What was the question? I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought.
Well, talking about Cheryl now and
Oh,
the next
oh yeah, oh yeah,
2025.
yeah, oh yeah. So anyways, so I had left the church for quite a while. I ran out of the church. I escaped the attempted rape. Actually, I ran out of the church, and then I left the church for a while. I said I had enough. And I tried to bring Wayne back into the church a few years later. And I said, look, I begged him to go to church with me. So we would go to a church near that Alden house, the one that was tribal haunted house. And who's there but the Father Jim that raped him? They move these priests around fairly frequently. And he's caused a big scene in the church. And I wound up getting him out of there and leaving. So that was really traumatic. So I had a couple really seriously traumatic episodes with the church. So I stayed away for quite a while. But this terrible incident here actually brought me back. As bad as it is, it brought me back into the fold. I knew that was my only protection in a spiritual attack like that, was with my church. So I guess that's what actually really did bring me back after all. Then that priest just recently passed away just in the last few weeks, and every time I'd see his picture, it caused me trauma. And I prayed for him anyways, but that was pretty brutal. He denied my baptism there, and here all this creepy stuff was going on between him and the deacon and all this. Just it was bad. But anyways, it's better now. So now they want me to get my daughter baptized. So that was my point. I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought. So I left the church, and we had never got our two youngest baptized. So right now, I have a special needs daughter that's probably suffering some oppression too, and she's afraid to get in the car. She's been really fearful of getting in the car for some time. so I can't get her over to the church to get her baptized. So they're going to try to do something very unique and baptize her here. So
Okay.
she just had a talk with their psychiatrist to get that. You have to go. They're very methodical. You have to go through their steps. Like she's got to
Yeah.
talk to the psychiatrist and make sure that, everything's in the proper place the way they do it. So that's our plan to get her baptized, and then so I suppose still give me some more healings. I don't know. I feel like I'm doing better now, but we'll see if I need any more or not.
Can I ask you, how old is your youngest daughter?
She is 26, but she's special needs, so she's more like more like 12 or 14 as far as emotionally and developmentally goes.
And when would you say your last demonic oppression activity or infestation happened to you last? When was the last time you've been affected?
Yeah, it's been well, it's been it'll periodically attack me emotionally, just recently, really, and I just kind of got through one the last couple of weeks. It's just all these horrifying memories, and it tries to get you to inundate you with terrible memories and get you angry and upset and stuff. And it's something that you just gotta fight it off, and fight through it, and it can really be exhausting sometimes, though, and it's kind of hard to explain. But yeah, a lot of times it attacks you that way, through the emotions and stuff like that. But I haven't been physically attacked in quite some time, actually, luckily. Thank God.
What's the misconception surrounding exorcism? A lot of people watch the movies and say, "Oh, it happens overnight and it's done after a few
Yeah,
hours." What is the reality of the rites of exorcism?
I'd say a lot of it's, you're not gonna, a lot of it's not as dramatic as you'd think. A lot of it's kind of quieter at first, and sometimes there it takes a while to draw them out too. And a lot of times when something like the last healing they did for me, I was just felt kind of just kind of go out to a different zone, and I could just feel like I could hear the voice even like, after you, priest, after you, priest, and I'm just keeping it all in, and because I'm just wanting to be healed, and I don't want to go through this anymore. I'm just like hoping for the best, but I wound up telling them like this is what happened, but yeah, there's not a lot of, screaming, jumping around, stuff like that. Yeah, I don't know. Sometimes I don't know. It's less dramatic for the most part, I think, than most people expect. It really tries to mess with your emotions and your anger, and you're, trying to get you not to forgive people and be angry about past trauma and stuff like that. And
So it basically feeds on your trauma so far.
yeah, and another thing is that made me so I couldn't eat. I'm starting to battle with that again. It goes back and forth, back and forth. That's why you probably have to periodically keep giving me these healings. At one point, I had lost like 90 pounds. I couldn't eat anything, I was just like, it makes you so you can't eat. It's weird. It feels like you're already full or something, like there's something inside you and there's no more room for food or something like that. It's really weird. And so, yeah, I lost so much weight for a point there where I finally, with the healings and stuff, finally started coming back and just having to force myself to eat. And I buy a lot of protein drinks just to make sure I'm not, and just have some nutrition in me, to just force it down. And it comes periodically. It'll come in waves. Like I'll be okay for a while, and then it comes another wave, where I'm fighting that again, and I suppose I might do that for a while until hopefully it finally just disappears. And
What would be you've already mentioned about doing a lot of the work yourself, but in between the work from the church by the church. So what would your advice be to somebody who's out there dealing with an infestation or demonic oppression that doesn't have the support from their diocese? What would be your words of advice for that person?
that's tough. I know that's hard when you like what I went through. You can try to reach out to some of the famous exorcists, but they always just push you back to your diocese. I'd probably do some research and maybe uh boy, I don't know. But they always push you back to your own diocese. It's just like, and some of those dioceses don't have any clue or don't want to deal with it. Like what my priest, he was gracious at first and helped me and had me get the evidence and all that stuff. for the last year or so, when he realized how serious it was and what was really going on, he didn't want anything to do with me. I see him at church, and he wouldn't even want to shake my hand. I went to an after a church event not too long ago, and the guy wouldn't even shake my hand or talk with me, avoided me, and it's hard because some of the priests are just really intimidated. So he actually gave it to another priest, Father Seiler and Father Jarvis, who I've had with the team and stuff. But I would try to feel it out, try to find a priest that maybe is sympathetic, but it's not real always easy, you know. And
I think a priest who delegates the responsibility is a priest that doesn't have strong enough faith. That's what I believe is.
yeah,
If you were strong in
that's
your
right.
faith, you
Yeah,
would take this on. You
I
wouldn't
know. That's
delegate
what I
this.
started kind of feeling. I kind of feel, and I still kind of feel like that. Like if you're really going to be a true priest, and you're not just an administrative priest, you know, and just like in the niceties, you know, like I see Father Michael today, you know, like waving to all the, the women in the church, the popular, the school people, I'm saying the
Yeah,
people that are popular because they're, the perfect little housewives and all the kids go to Catholic school and stuff like that. That made
yeah,
me feel kind of really left out. But I
yeah,
felt like, wait, what is the integral part of Christianity?
yeah,
And some of the basic teachings is exorcism, right?
yeah.
It's like if you're going to be a
Absolutely.
real solid priest, you should be able to do that, and
Yeah,
I think.
it's the fight or flight mechanism. So obviously, this priest chose to flee and delegate. So
Yeah, he chose to flee. He was okay at first. In fact, he's the one that told me the psychiatrist and the evidence and stuff. But then he just, as he was starting to hear those audios, I think, and hearing what was happening to me, I think it just terrified him. And he really doesn't want to have anything to do with that or with me. And he's even downright rude to me. So I just avoid. I go to mass and I just avoid him. I just avoid him.
it's a spiritual battle. So
Yeah,
you're either capable of fighting this battle, or you're not. There's nothing in your essence to take on that fight. So it's the fight or flight mechanism, and he's chose to flee, chose to
yeah,
protect
yeah.
himself. But
Yes, good
if
point.
you're a
Yeah.
priest, your line of call is to the people, and you need to help your people of your diocese. And so that, yeah, unfortunately, there are weak priests out there with
Yeah, he
lack of
is
faith.
like that. At one time, it's been a few years, but he was saying no, has had something terrifying happen, and he was in his office last night. Someone's banging on the window, and he looks right at me. It's like I know, I think it may or may not have something to do with it. Maybe it does, but yeah, I'd like just grow up a little bit, and not that is your job, and sometimes you do get things like that happen, weird things, if they're working with you,
Yeah, I mean, as we know, there's people in the priesthood that shouldn't be there. Their intention is wrong. Their intention isn't
I think
pure.
so too. Yeah, I think so too. He's the one that they won't let him retire either. I think he's just in there for the job and the niceties of the administrative part of the church, and they don't want some of those priests don't want to deal with any of the ugliness, which is part of reality.
Corruption
Yeah.
is in every walk of life. I've seen a lot of priests become corrupted by money, ego,
Oh,
you know, people putting them on a pedestal, the
oh, I could see
worshipping.
that. Right.
Yeah, it takes a lot of faith and a lot of self-awareness to battle that corruption, and it's in every walk of
Right.
life: politics, sport, music, film, priest, the
Yeah,
religion,
right.
every walk.
Retaining humbleness is a talent and a gift, right? But many don't, for sure.
Absolutely, and this is why I find a lot of exorcist priests won't don't want me to come and document their experiences, because what they're dealing with is not very nice. It's very internal. It's very
Yeah.
serious, and they're very humble. The best priest exorcists that I've spoken to and dealt with have been the most humble. They're
Yeah.
not out doing their book deals. They're not out doing their film deals and on
Right.
YouTube,
Right.
on podcasts. They are doing the work silently in the shadows, and they have
Exactly.
faith. They have the
Exactly. I don't.
faith.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. They're not delegating the work. They're not delegating the responsibility, and they're the priests that I respect the most. It's a bit like the military. What we've done, what we continue to do is not very nice work, and
Right.
you don't want to be telling people what you've done because it's not very nice, and it's pretty war is hell. And
Yeah,
always
right.
be wary of the veteran who over talks,
Boast
amplifies,
about. Yeah,
sensationalizes,
yeah.
So
I
there
agree.
are good priests, there are great priests out there. There are in all walks of life, all denominations. And the battle is real. I've known that. You
Yeah, I
fight
have
the
a hard time.
battles.
Yeah, for sure. I have a hard time trusting some of the ones that put themselves a little bit on a pedestal and have the book deals and the podcast
Yeah, yeah,
shows and this and that. And I don't know. It just seems like it's more about glorifying themselves than. And one of them, like, I don't name names, but it's guy that had a scandal recently. I don't know. I have a hard time trusting them. And then they get into politics, and even
yeah,
our
yeah.
popes right there,
It's so
he
obvious.
excommunicates some of them if they don't stop.
It's a bit like working with soldiers who they talk a good fight, they talk a good game, and then when you're on the battlefield, you know
Yeah,
very, very quickly whether they are good soldiers or not. And it's a bit like priest exorcists,
yeah.
those
I
who
think you're
talk a
right.
good game, but once you get in that room and you activate and you start the rite, then it's not everyone's cup of tea, and that's where the strength of faith, comes into play.
Right.
And it's the same thing if you take what you're dealing with as a battle, and it's a spiritual battle. It takes a very specific type of person to want to take that on and to manage and to lead that room and to deal with something supernatural from our point of view. So, look, I have full respect for you coming on and talking about your story. It's going to hopefully it'll give a lot of people the strength to come forward
Yeah, I hope so.
and
Oh,
reach
yeah.
out.
It was hard to put it out there, but like you say, I was thinking, well, if it can help somebody else, or it's maybe there's a reason for it for sure. And yeah, thank you for having me. I appreciate it. I have a
Nope.
lot of respect for you. Thank you for your service in the military, and
Thank you very
yeah,
much.
you're
No,
a wonderful
you're
filmmaker
you're
too.
you're extremely one of the most courageous women I've ever met. So I respect you
Oh, thank you,
100%. So,
Marty.
and I'll put your YouTube channel, your YouTube link into the description so people can look at this
Okay,
evidence that you've gathered, and I would love to next time I'm in the States come over and have a chat, meet up. And I know you're good
sure.
friends with Jimmy, mutual friend
Yeah,
of ours, so he's a great
yeah.
guy.
Oh, I know. He has his character. Gives me
But
laughing every
yeah,
day.
yeah, keep yourself safe, and
Okay,
yeah,
Marty.
keep in
Thank you
touch.
so much.
Thanks for listening to our podcast, and remember about our Facebook page where you can find out more information about our documentary. If you have some spare cash, then please buy us a coffee over at buymeacoffee.com/HTTD podcast to help us keep this podcast going. And it would only be right to finish with the main man himself.
Malachi, who gets possessed? I mean,
Well, you see, we have tried in the past, Michael, now I'm speaking about a career stretching over 35 years. We have tried in the past to create the profile of the possessable person, so to speak. And we have found that there's no norm. For instance, neither sex, nor age, nor education, nor color, nor race, nor riches or poorness, or intellectual degrees.
crosses all boundaries.
It's at random, apparently random. And of course it's random because it depends on the free will of everybody. And therefore it's haphazard. There's no law. There's no rule at all.